Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. With Los Angeles Thieves certainly struggling at the moment, losing their last 6 maps in a row. Octane is explaining exactly why these issues are so hard for them to solve, but also Murdoch, the general management of the team, explaining that Enable doesn't really know what he is talking about. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to dive into this evening. Firstly, just wanted to mention this real quick because I talked about it briefly last week. That the Tactical Recap episode 2 is out of business. So if you guys kind of watch these videos on occasion, have a difficult time keeping up with absolutely everything, then you can check out these articles that come up once a week on the Breaking Point site, kind of the 5 key storylines of the week, links to all the videos and the tweets and that type of stuff in there as well. So great job Slim for getting this out last night. Gonna try and do this effectively every Tuesday. It's like if you guys find this valuable, then let me know, or like just check it out. To be honest, that would work as well. So anyway, wanted to mention this, some further talking points with regard to Modern Warfare 2, as teacher Halley says we need CTF back next year. This has certainly been a key talking point that he's kind of been promoting the last few years, that he wants CTF back as the third mode. There has been some talk really about Control this year. I think Control is okay. Like I think it was fantastic really in Black Ops 4. Black Ops Cold War was generally not great, but on some maps it was pretty good. You do get some great hype moments in it. But this year I think there's also been some decent moments, but generally the way the maps are, it's not particularly good to watch most of the time. Like Gavutu, watching like Paris versus LAG on Gavutu, it might even be worse than like a St. Petrograd domination for Modern Warfare. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch. But a lot of people have said, look, CTF capture the flag, it needs to come back as the third game mode. We shall see what they decide to do. Hopefully they, Modern Warfare 1 never had Control, right? It was just domination we had to play. So hopefully they do bring in another game mode we can at least try out. But as Sash is like, look, we need Call of Duty back next year. Need an actual proper Call of Duty in the game. Give me, a real man's game just one more time. So he's not liking these last couple of games. And even as Paris says, one more. Slasher retiring after next year confirmed. Slasher not saying that by any means, but, figured the next 2 years are guaranteed to be squad spawn door busting, slithering around the maps again. So we shall see what it is. But yeah, Slasher not too confident that we're going to have a real man's Call of Duty back in action once again. Just did want to mention this real quick because, has been some talk about what changes teams could possibly make here. Neptune and Co, they 3-0 the Trash Bros in a tournament last night, but then Neptune's team gets reverse swept in the next round by Scrappy and Co. Like, as he says, 15 last map. The thing is with Scrappy in the Ultra Academy North America is that they've done so many reverse sweeps, 2 of which against pro teams at the Prime Classic, failed to qualify, unfortunately, for the bracket play after getting 3-1 by the Paris Legion, and the bracket, the map counts didn't really work out for them. But, reverse swept these guys. Scrappy drops 15 last map, and that's been the talking point, really. Like, look, should Ultra, or should Scrappy have signed that contract with Ultra? Now they're probably going to hold him to that contract for the rest of the season. They might even want to try him in the starting team, like, given the fact that even, without Insight a few days ago, they still won that series very impressively, and Scrappy took over that game 4. So I'm sure a lot of guys and a lot of teams really are keeping their eyes on this guy, because certainly in terms of a flex role, if you need an upgrade in that position, Scrappy could be the man to step into your team, or even as a main AR, and add just way more pace to the roster. Now, just wanted to mention this really because, of course, we're going to talk about Octane and the Los Angeles Thieves stuff. As Jake Lucky points out, rather interesting story that Enthusiast Gaming, the largest shareholder of Enthusiast, who owns Luminosity, who effectively own Seattle Surge, bit of a mess that's going on there. But, they've called for kind of a change in the company's CEO. We know that obviously, look, this filters down to a degree. We've heard the last few years, that, like, especially from the likes of Slacked or people that were in that original Seattle Surge roster, like, they really had no idea what they were doing. They were paying an awful lot of salary, but, like, they would only have Joey Nubsy as their coach. They didn't really have, like, okay, they did have proper substitutes, but the way they ran their organization apparently was pretty awful. The last couple of years might be a different story, right? But yeah, there's certainly been some frustration about that, so we'll see if this kind of leads to anything on the CDL side. Speaking of Seattle Surge, of course, Octane was stuck on that team for a couple of years, and this is a pretty quality tweet, to be honest, but of course, since moving to LA Thieves, that was kind of meant to be the big thing for Octane, right? He's been stuck on a team the last couple, hasn't been particularly good, hasn't had all that much talent around him. This year, he should have the talent, right? This team on paper should have been top 3, top 4 in that ballpark, definitely fighting for championship Sundays, championship victories, and of course, despite the Prime Classic, where they came top 2, but as we looked at yesterday, not an incredibly impressive run, I would argue. Since then, they've obviously been looking pretty bad. Now, apparently, the scrims are going absolutely swimmingly, right? They reckon they're absolutely fantastic. We're destroying everyone in scrims, not necessarily destroying, but like beating everyone in scrims. That's kind of where Octane finds the frustration here, because as he's about to describe in these clips I'll share for you guys, like, look, in scrims, they beat everyone. They beat most of the teams they play. They're comfortably good on pretty much all the maps, and for whatever reason, when it comes to a match play situation, they just can't make it work. And he reckons this is actually a worse issue to have than if they were looking bad in scrims, right? If they were terrible in scrims, or let's say they were terrible on a particular set of maps, their Tuscan hardpoint, their Berlin hardpoint, their, I don't know, Berlin control was awful in scrims, they were losing it to everyone, they can say, okay, look, if we just fix those maps, then we'll be in business. But the fact that they're doing well in scrims, and then for whatever reason, it just doesn't happen in the matches, if anything, is a bit more concerning, right, as he describes here. Practice goes so well, it doesn't translate whatsoever to matches. I don't get it. Need to figure it out. GGCL. Of course, they got 3-0 just a couple of days ago. So I'll share what Octane has to say here. here, because it's kind of frustrating from his perspective that they feel like they're so confident in one hand, but on the other hand, they're getting absolutely bodied when they go to a match time.
It's just so frustrating because we're so good in scrims. Like, that's literally, like, I wish we were ass. I wish we were horrible. TJ, thank you for the 2 months, buddy. I actually wish we were horrible in scrims, because then it would be like, it's like noticeable problems, if that makes sense. Like, if you're just getting blown out in scrims, like, at least you can attribute it to something. But if we're beating teams and then we're just showing up and getting smoked, like, I don't know, dude. It just feels so bad. It's very annoying because, like I said, dude, it's like, things are going well, so it's very hard to pinpoint, like, why the f we suck. Like, other than just, like, underperforming or whatever, like, that's just, you're not going to drop a, you know, no one's going to get, not the same person's going to get every single series. Like, we all take turns, so it's not just, like, overwhelming. But, like, if it was, like, a fundamental gameplay thing, that's so much easier to fix, bro. But, like, we're winning every scrim, so it's like, where do you start? What's the issue? Where's the translation from scrims to matches? Like, where's the disconnect? Like, figuring that out is so hard, bro. Like I said, dude, I just wish we sucked in practice, because then you'd be like, yo, we suck at Tuscan Hardpoint. But we don't. We don't suck at Tuscan Hardpoint. It's like, it's just, the disconnect from scrims to matches is one of the hardest things in the world to figure out, because there's no solution. It doesn't just, like we all take turns getting on, dude. And which is because, like, that shit, hi Papa, that doesn't happen in scrims. That's what it's like. That's why I'm confused. Like, I don't know where the disconnect is, dude. I don't. Because in scrims, like, yeah, we'll have, like, bad maps every now and then, but, like, we get to matches and just, we all take turns getting smoked, dude. I don't know why.
So Octane can say they've been killing it in scrims all he likes, but, like, look, we don't have the numbers here, we don't have the data, we can't actually look at the numbers, because, as we know, every team says scrims are going well, every team says they're winning scrims, and yeah, absolutely fantastic. Of course, I don't know how many, like, amateur teams and top challenger teams that LA Thieves might be playing, but even in scrims against FaZe and Optic, they reckon they're having a good time. Like, and Thieves have also said that, like, look, no one enjoys playing us when they come to a match time, no one's kind of, you know, comes up against us and thinks it's an easy game, right? Which might be true, but, like, still, their performances lately haven't necessarily reflected that. And Enable a few days ago, we looked at the clip yesterday, right, and Parasite said, and Center said, and Ake said, like, this team needs a change, 100% guaranteed. This roster of 4 is not going to cut it. They seem to be still sticking with it, at least for now. Of course, it kind of makes sense, given you don't want to make a change necessarily midweek. But Enable said he thinks the problem on this team might actually be Envoy. And his words on the fact that he reckons that Kenny, at least internally within the team, is considered to be either the best or the second best player on the lineup, and potentially Envoy is nowhere near that, means that Envoy is a more likely candidate to get benched than Kenny is at the present time. Effectively pushing for Envoy to get benched and Pentagram to come in, or whatever the case might be. Of course, Enable on 100 Thieves, close to the team, relatively close to the team at least. Now, well, it's clearly Mudog doesn't necessarily agree with that assessment. Now, he doesn't mean to actually reply to this comment. There was another comment that said, I guess LA Thieves are kind of satisfied with top 8 placings then, if they're not going to make any moves. Now, Mudog says, we're not satisfied with top 8 placings. We don't talk to Ian, that being Enable, about COD nearly as much as he apparently says. We're aware of how the team is struggling, and we have a realistic idea of how the players are performing. Ian just says this stuff for impressions. So I get the idea that maybe Kenny's, you know, best or second best player on that team, maybe that's not legitimate, or basically saying, like, look, they're not happy with top 8s, they want to get better. But you know, still, it does seem like the two approaches they've taken last year, making loads of changes, making no changes, none of them have really worked out right. And Los Angeles Thieves have to turn things around significantly, because right now they're 1-2, and they're once again at risk of not making it through to the winners bracket, right? They beat London Royal Ravens 3-0. Since then, though, they've got 3-0'd by the Minnesota Rokkr, and now 3-0'd by Seattle Surge, and next week they play Boston and Optic Texas. So I think their map count is not great, actually. They're 3-6 in terms of map count, and let's say the Optic series, let's say they get 3-1 or something there, like, they have to do well against Boston. Even a victory against Boston and a loss against Optic might not be enough based on their map count, right? They might be in kind of a Minnesota Rokkr situation when they find themselves losing out on map count, even at a 2-3 record. So they're certainly going to need a big week. They're almost always good against Optic. I feel like no matter how bad LA Thieves have been the last few matches, whenever they play Optic, they kind of turn up to a new level, or Kenny goes off, or Envoy goes off, or something. So I still reckon this series is going to be very interesting. Optic, of course, have a pretty hard week as well. Of course, they play on the Saturday and the Sunday against the Subliners and Los Angeles Thieves, respectively. But yeah, LA Thieves also don't have an easy week, right? Boston Breach, definitely a team that is not easy to bowl them over. They've been kind of, well, falling off the pecking order a little bit lately, but LA Thieves are a team that probably would be beating Boston in scrims pretty resoundingly, based on what Octane is talking about right there. But translating that into an actual match setting apparently has been the difficulty for them. And if they can't do that, like, it's reminding a lot of people really about the kind of Optic Chicago team last year, and Envoy there would be the common denominator. But it's kind of difficult to know what they should do, right? Because if their scrims are going well, their practice is good, they're looking fine, they go to matches and get bodied, like they probably have no idea what they should even do to change things, right? Like how do they know where they're falling short or what they need to do to switch things up or which player to replace if their scrims are going great? Now, in fairness, as Modog says, right, they have a reasonable idea of how players are performing in certain settings, so they can potentially work around this to a degree, but it's still not ideal for them by any means. And I did want to mention this actually also, a couple of things as we close out the video here. If you guys remember Diabolic, this a player way back in the day, I think he was on Enigma 6 for a time, but also on, I think the original, was he on the Dream Team squad, if you guys remember that one back in the day? I think it was Killer, Diabolic, like Sender, and maybe Chino was that team. I think they came second at like Stage 2 playoffs, they had some sort of crazy run there, but Diabolic back in the Black Ops 2 Pro League, I thought he was a great player. It seems like nowadays he's moved on to actually play poker at a pretty high level, playing this tournament here, won like 200k, so I thought that was really cool. Apparently Sasha was watching along, so I don't know, it's interesting really when these players disappear from Call of Duty, you have no idea what they do, and then Diabolic just pops up playing poker professionally, so thought that was a rather interesting one to note if you guys are around a long enough time and remember Diabolic, as thought he was a really good player back in the day, to be honest. Just before we look at the kind of breaking point map run that we're going to have to the best map of all time in Call of Duty history, this just to mention I thought was rather interesting. One gotta go SMGs edition. You can't get rid of Scump or Shotzi, you probably can't get rid of Hydra, and you're not going to get rid of Simp, right? So it's probably going to be Afro just kind of by necessity. I do feel like Afro is really good, but he hasn't really been able to translate what's been very good online performances into a LAN environment, and lately he hasn't been quite as solid as he was Stage 1. So I definitely want to see Afro do a bit more, because I certainly think this guy has the talent to be one of the best SMG players, if not the best in the entire league at some point. But again, right now it's not quite the case, especially on LAN, so he's got some work to do there. But just wanted to look at this as we close out then. So the greatest competitive map of all time brackets, we've seen the last few weeks where we've done the kind of polls, or at least we've talked about it on the videos, of effectively choosing 2 maps from each game, and then taking those 2 maps and putting them into a bracket like this. Now, unfortunately, Vanguard and Modern Warfare's maps, well, not really unfortunately, fairly enough really, are getting absolutely bodied in the polls right now. So there's 4 polls going on of these kind of first round games. Pretty sure Samurai going to win from World War II, London Docks, of course, Raid 2 from Cold War's going to win, and Moscow from Cold War as well. So Gunrunner, Hackney Yard, these are probably going to be gone. Now, look, this is how the bracket is shaping up. So Raid will play, well, potentially will play Raid 2 at some point. I kind of don't want to vote really for Raid 2 just because it's basically Raid 1, copy and paste. I'm not really sure if there were any differences really, apart from the way the movement worked, between the original Raid in Black Ops 2 and the one in Cold War, unless you consider like kind of spawns and stuff like that, in which probably the original Raid wins out. But if they do kind of make it through, they will eventually play each other in the grand finals on this side, so we're not going to get Raid 1 versus Raid 2 in the grand finals. That would be kind of stupid. But I'll definitely do my best to keep you guys updated on this over the coming days. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button, tell us the YouTube god this is a good video, and I was like you should see it as well, and hope grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.